Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to the Dreams to Keys Realty YouTube channel. I am Jalon Strong, the Essential Millennial Realtor here of Dreams to Keys Realty. I'm not on camera today, not because I don't want to be, but there are some StreamYard concerns with the video that we still haven't seen resolution for. So until then, I don't want to have a distraction of the video being frozen, so I'm going to use the avatar today. Nonetheless, welcome to the Dreams to Keys Realty YouTube channel. Make sure that you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button as well as the like button, and also make sure that you're hitting the notification bell so that you don't miss any content that we post or anytime we go live here on YouTube. Also, make sure that you are sharing our content to anyone that you know is interested in real estate and the type of topics that we're covering. Today, we're going to be talking about market data for Gwinnett County. In a previous video today, I covered DeKalb County with a new zip code, and we're going to cover Gwinnett County here with a new zip code as well. Before we do that, let's talk about the link in the bio, highlight of the week, or link in the description box. This week's link in the bio or description box highlight of the week is Down Payment Connect. If you're looking for the link in the bio, it is moving about at the bottom of your screen saying beacons.ai/Jalon Strong. Once you go to that link, you will see a tab that says Down Payment Connect. Down Payment Connect will take you to a website that allows you to put in some information about the property that you're looking for, such as where you would want to live and the specifics of the property that you're looking for. Then it will give you information that is customized to you about down payment assistance programs available to you in your area. So if you're interested in that or feel that you may need down payment assistance, please use that tab from the link in the bio or link in the description box and click the tab that says Down Payment Connect so that you can get connected today. All right. Now let's go to the newest link in our bio, the newest link from the link in the bio, which is Crown First Lady. Crown First Lady is a tab that you'll see also at the link in the bio, which references a business that I created most recently. As of April this year, I started a business called Crown First Lady, and it is essentially a business that came out of my healing journey. I developed or was aware that I had alopecia, and I was going through processes to try to understand how to overcome it. I sought healthcare professionals, even as I am a healthcare professional. And there were some things that I was suggested to do and advised to do that I felt were not quite long lasting for me, for my health, for my journey, or even on an everyday regular basis. It would be too taxing. So I came up with a blend of essential oils that I have been using on myself for years. And it came to a point that some family and friends asked me about it, and I provided them some samples. And from there, I was asked for more in a bottle, for a bigger size bottle. And that helped to launch what is now Crown First Lady. You can go to crownfirstlady.net and purchase right now a 1 ounce or a 4 ounce bottle. The 1 ounce bottle would be more of your sample or travel size, and the 4 ounce bottle is for those that are fully invested, fully committed to trying or continuing with the First Lady Scalp Oil. It has helped me to make sure my scalp is not as irritated as it once was, and it aids me in my regimen weekly to make sure that my scalp is not inflamed. And that has been a part of my healing journey from dealing with alopecia. So if you are someone that you know deals with alopecia or scalp issues, I would suggest that you try it and let us know how it worked for you. We would love a review and also love to make sure that we can ship out your order after you place it So I try to make sure the orders go out definitely within the week, but some of them I can turn around within 24 hours. So I really love to see your business and hope that you can find benefits from using First Lady Scalp Oil, which you can find at crownfirstlady.net. All right, so now we're going to move to our topic today, which is market data for Gwinnett County. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to review it. I want to make sure everyone can see my screen before we get into it. It looks like you all can see it, which is great. And maybe I should make it bigger. All right, so that's better. For those of you who have never been on this channel, we always look at the data from the FMLS, or the First Multiple Listing Service. And that data, of course, comes from an MLS, but it's courtesy of FastStats. The zip code that we will be reviewing is 30019, which includes Dacula in Gwinnett County. We're reviewing the month of June for 2025. You may be asking, we're in July. Why aren't we reviewing July? Well, because we're in July, July has not closed and all the transactions of July have not closed. So we typically like to make sure that not only the month is over, but we give it some time, maybe about 15 days into the next month before reviewing that month, so we can make sure all those transactions are accounted for and we have some accurate data at that point. So we are going to cover residential detached and residential attached for the same key metrics. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all of the definitions because this is the same approach that we've taken for each zip code we've reviewed. So if you've been here on the channel, you've heard me say these things so many times, and we're going to kind of briefly describe them and move on to the data and see how they compare. Now let's start with residential detached with the key metric of new listings. For June 2024, it was 106. For June 2025, it was 119, showing a percent increase of 12.3%. So with this being residential detached, these properties are not connected to one another, such as single family homes. And with new listings, we see that we have slightly more new listings than we had in June of 2024. That statistical difference does not show a statistically significant difference, but let's move on to pending sales, which are those sales that have an executed contract, but not a closed transaction of exchange of property between the seller and the buyer just yet. So the pending sales for June 2024 is 56. For June 2025, 53, showing a decrease of 5.4%. This is a difference of 3 pending sales, and we can't take much away from that statistically or from what may be felt in the market. Now let's look at closed sales, which are those sales that have finalized, where we had not only an executed contract, but the closing table was not only reached, but all the documentation and exchanges needed at the closing table were done. So June 2024, we had 74 closed sales and 81 for June 2025, showing an increase of 9.5%. Showing that we do have more closed sales. I wouldn't say that it's statistically significant. It's a difference of about 7. So not a whole lot there. But overall, from the metrics that we have reviewed thus far, we see more new listings, slightly less pending sales, and more closed sales. Now let's look to days on market until sale. Days on market until sale means that we're looking at the cumulative days on market. So from the time that property is listed until that property is sold, how many days transpired in between? For June 2024, it was 26. For June 2025, it was 29, showing an increase of 11.5%. Now, we typically don't want to see the days on market until sale increasing because that may mean that properties are staying on the market longer. And if you're a seller, that's not something that you want to hear, that properties are staying on the market longer. However, both numbers are less than 30. 30 days on market until sale is typically a good time frame for a buyer if they're looking to purchase a property, to have 30 days to get all the financing together and all of that. So that's not a terrible time frame if it were 30 days or less. Now, the smaller the number, the more you might see investors in that market. With these numbers, you may be seeing more of a mixture or slightly more buyers coming into the market that want to live in the property versus invest. So there's a lot that can be said, but essentially, this is not a terrible change that we see a slight increase in the days on market until sale. But of course, we'll look at the year-to-date data as well. Median sales price has an asterisk. Median sales price is referencing the middle point of all the sales prices in that time frame, and the asterisk is mentioning that there are some things that were not included in this metric, such as seller concessions and down payment assistance. For June 2024, it was $483,997. For June 2025, it was $487,500, showing an increase of 0.7%. That is not a statistically significant difference, and it could be a difference for anyone who is in a specific price point that they're trying to keep underneath a certain price or a certain sales price. So that could impact someone. Just looking at the median sales price, however, the median again is the middle point, meaning that there are prices above and below. So that doesn't necessarily price someone out of this market, but as you see a trend of the sales price or median sales price increasing, it may cause some hesitancy, or you definitely want to make sure you're doing research with your real estate agent to make sure that you can afford a property in this market as you see a trend of the prices going up. Average sales price is the average as it denotes, and average here means that you have all the sales prices and divide it by the number of sales prices that there were. For June 2024, it was $593,953. For June 2025, it was $516,747, showing a decrease of 13%. And again, this metric has an asterisk with the same description of things that could not be considered that were not considered with the median sales price. You will see that there are 3 categories or metrics that have this asterisk, and we have one more upcoming. But here we see that the average sales price is doing the opposite of what we saw the median sales price doing. The average sales price is decreasing, whereas the median sales price is increasing. So let's look at the percent of list price received, which also has an asterisk with the same description. June 2024, the percent of list price received was 99%. For June 2025, it was 98%, which shows a decrease of 1%. We would like to see this number as close to 100%, which would give us the indication that the list price is matching the sales price. And if those are the cases, then it tells us in theory that prices or homes are being listed closer to what their value is, which is an indication of selling at that price. So with numbers as close to 100% as these, we can see that the market, even though there's a difference in this percentage, that the market is reflecting that it's still in a good position for list price and sales price. Now, inventory of homes for sale for June 2024 was 183 and 270 for June 2025, showing an increase of 47.5%, meaning we have almost double, not double, but almost 50% more homes for sale on the market as of June 2025 than we did for June 2024. We did see the new listings increase, and now here we're seeing that overall the inventory is higher than it was last year. And that could be from homes still being on the market from previous months. Now let's look at month supply of inventory. June 2024 was 3, June 2025 was 4.6, showing an increase of 53.3%. This is showing us that if no other homes are added to the market, it would have taken us 3 months in June of 2024 to sell all those homes. Whereas in June 2025, it would take us about 4.5 to almost 5 months to sell all of that inventory, again, with nothing else being added. So it means that our homes are staying on the market a little bit longer than expected, with more homes on the market during these time periods. Now let's look at year to date. Through June 2024, for new listings, it was 585. Through June 2025, it was 682 new listings, showing an increase of 16.6%. So overall, we have new listings not only comparing the months of June, but also looking at year to date for both these time frames from January 1 to the end of June for both of these years. I'm sorry, for the year of 2025, we have more new listings. For pending sales through June 2024, it was 426. And through June 2025, it was 376, showing a decrease of about 12%. So even though we have more new listings year to date in this year, we are seeing less pending sales. Again, pending sales are those transactions that have not closed yet, but there was an executed contract. And a contract may not close for a number of reasons, which this data will not tell us. Now, let's look at year-to-date data. For closed sales through June 2024, it was 408. Through June 2025, it was 371, showing a decrease of 9.1%. So we not only see that there's a difference here from comparing month to month and year to date for closed sales. Month to month, we saw more closed sales. Year to date, we're overall seeing less closed sales. So looking at year to date overall for the metrics we reviewed thus far, we have more new listings, but less pending and closed sales. Now let's look to days on market until sale. Year to date through June 2024 was 38 days on market until sale. And then through June 2025, it was 42 days on market until sale, showing an increase of 10.5%. This has crossed over the 30-day time frame that we generally look to see, which is for a buyer that is looking to buy a home and live in that home. The 30-day time frame is pretty reasonable for that buyer. When we see that this number is longer than that, we start to think about the seller. And is the seller in the financial positioning to withstand the houses being on market, and in particular their home being on market for longer? And here we see it's almost a month and a half. So there is a longer time frame that homes may be on the market until sale, looking at this year alone. So if you're a seller in this market, or you're thinking about selling in this market, be prepared that your home may be on the market for longer than 1 month, and make sure that you have the financial positioning to withstand that. Median sales price, again, has an asterisk with the same considerations. Through June 2024, it was $456,000. And through June 2025, it was $465,000. So that's about a $9,000 difference, showing a 2% increase. So the median sales price is increasing here year to date, just as it did looking at the months of June. Now let's look at the average sales price. For the year to date through June 2024, it was $514,180. Through June 2025, it was $518,478, showing an increase of 0.8%. Now here we see that the average sales price year to date is increasing. Whereas when we looked at the month-to-month data, we saw this metric decreasing, which is interesting. So it's not increasing by much year to date, like maybe close to $4,000, but the difference when we looked at the month-to-month data was much larger. Again, this metric has an asterisk, and there are some considerations that can't be included when we review this. But that is something to note, that here year to date, the median sales price and the average sales price have increased. Not by much, and statistical difference may not be there, but if you are in a specific price point, again, there are some considerations that you want to make as a buyer. Now, percent of list price received has the same asterisk and considerations. Year to date through June 2024 was 99.1%. Through June 2025 was 98.5%, showing a decrease of 0.6%. And again, these numbers are close to 100%, showing us that the list price and the sales price are quite comparable. And again, we still have that asterisk there. So there are some considerations that are not included in this metric. Now, are there any questions? I'm going to pause and just check our chat to see if there are any questions. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation or live today, make sure that you put them in the comment section. I'll make sure to review that before we leave here. And if you put it on the comment section after the replay or during the replay, then I will review it at that time and will provide you an appropriate response at that time. I don't see any questions or comments, so I'm going to move to the next property type, which is residential attached. Residential attached properties are those that, as the name suggests, are connected to one another, such as your townhomes. We have the same key metrics for month to month and year to date. So let's start with new listings. For June 2024, it was 2. For June 2025, it was 3, showing an increase of 50%. These numbers are quite small, so the percentage changes are going to be quite large. So here we have a very small market when it comes to residential attached. And new listings, we don't have much difference, only one difference in a new listing. So there's not much to gather there. For pending sales, for June 2024, it was 1. For June 2025, it was 3, showing a percentage change of 200%. Again, very small number changes. Very small numbers overall show a much greater percentage change. Is that significant? No, because there's not enough in that market to really suggest that's enough to make a difference in what you feel in the market. Now, statistically, it looks statistically significant, but can it be felt? Can that significance be felt in the market? I don't think so. Now let's look at closed sales. For June 2024, there were no closed sales under this property type. And for June 2025, there were 11. So when we compare nothing to a number, there's no percentage change that we have here to compare that to. So there's a blank there. And I find that interesting, but we'll keep moving on. Again, this is the zip code of 30019. It includes Dacula, and it's in Gwinnett County. So this is the first time that we've had a metric where it's 0 in all of the times that we reviewed data. So that's interesting. Now, days on market until sale for June 2024, nothing there because we had no closed sales. And then for June 2025, it was 51. So out of the 11 closings that happened for June 2025, all we can gather from that, we have the 51 days on market until sale. And there's no percentage change from that because we had no starting metric. So that's a longer time frame, but also we have so much smaller numbers. It gives me the indication that this market, more so than any other zip code we've seen in Gwinnett County, is not looking for residential attached properties. That's the indication I get, not just from this zip code, but from the zip codes we reviewed overall for Gwinnett County. It appears that our county is one where we're looking to see more of residential detached properties than attached properties, which can give more of an indication of why it's going to take longer, or it has taken longer in the past, for residential attached properties to sell. I'm not completely surprised by this being the longer metric of the ones we reviewed today. Now, median sales price, again, nothing there for 2024. For June 2025, $392,500 and no percentage change. So median sales price, again, has that asterisk, and median means middle. So the middle point, based on the data we do have, is less than $400,000. So if your price point is $400,000, you might want to consider this zip code. Keeping in mind, this is the median, meaning there are numbers of homes being listed for sale that are above and below this value. Now, average sales price, the same consideration with the asterisk, has no metric or no data for June 2024, but for June 2025, the average sales price was $400,385. The percent change doesn't reflect because we didn't have a beginning value. So again, average is taking all the sales prices and divided by the number of sales prices that there were. And again, we have an asterisk here. So there's some things we can't consider or they weren't taken into account with this metric, such as sale concessions and down payment assistance. Percent of list price received, we didn't have any closings. So again, there's nothing there for June 2024, but for June 2025, it was 99.6%. And that's pretty high. And I would expect a high percentage here, given such the low numbers in the new listings, the sales. So I would expect that the percentage here is higher. And the days on market is also longer. So I would expect that the sellers in this market are looking to make their list price. So it does not surprise me that this number is so close to 100%. Inventory of homes for sale for June 2024 was 4, and for June 2025 was 14, showing an increase or percentage change of 250%. And again, with smaller numbers, you have much larger percentage changes that look statistically significant, but are they significant for the market? So based on these small numbers of inventory for sale, 14 is quite large based on the other metrics we've seen. But in any other zip code, 14 would not be what you would see for inventory of homes for sale, especially with the days on market of 51 days. So this gives an indication to me that this zip code, the buyers in this zip code are really not looking for residential attached properties. They would prefer, based on this data alone, that they would see residential detached properties. So if I were someone who was building, I would probably consider residential detached buildings of homes before I wanted to put up a townhome based off this data. Okay. Now, month supply of inventory for June 2024, it was 4, and for June 2025, 3.8, showing a decrease of 5%. And 4 would have to come from previous months of supply because of inventory, because here we had 2 new listings. There was no sales for 2024 for June. So things had to be carrying on from previous months. And then for June 2025, we at least had some sales. There were 11 closings. So that month supply of inventory decreased, not by much, but it did decrease. So what this is saying is that overall, it would take about 4 months to sell. Let's say it's 14 homes for sale. Let's actually go back to June 2024, where it says the inventory of homes for sale was 4. It's saying it would take 4 months to sell 4 homes. 4 months to sell 4 homes in this zip code. Think about that. And then for June 2025, where there were actual reportings of 11 closings, it still will take about 4 months, and there's 14 homes for sale. So it does show that the pace of this market is increasing, but we do have much smaller numbers to work with than we're used to seeing. All right, year to date, we're going to look at new listings through June 2024. It was 8. Through June 2025, it was 38, showing an increase of 375%. That is statistically significant, and I'm sure that can be felt in that market. Now let's look at pending sales. Through June 2024, it was 3. For pending sales through June 2025, it was 30, showing an increase of 900%. Definitely statistically significant. And you have about 10 times the pending sales that you had in the previous year-to-date data. So yes, I would say that's significant. So that new listings might be some new buildings that happened year to date. And then because of that, you had more pending sales. Now let's go to closed sales. Through June 2024, it was 2. Through June 2025, it was 30, showing a 1,400% increase. Definitely statistically significant. Now let's look at the closed sales number wise. It's matching the pending sales. So to me, it gives the indication that there were some more listings, or maybe there was some building going on, and that wouldn't surprise me. In Gwinnett County, there's always some type of residential building going on, whether it's townhomes or residential single family homes. As of late, I will say that I see more townhomes, but I've also seen more on the rental side where there's single family homes being built, but for rent. So when it comes to residential attached, I wouldn't be surprised if this number has increased to this degree because of something in part due to buildings, like there being more built in that area. Now, days on market until sale through June 2024 was 17. Through June 2025, it was 48, showing an increase of 182.4%. Definitely statistically significant. When we look at the year-to-date data for 2025, at that point, we're well over the 30-day mark. We're we're over the 1.5 month mark. So it's showing that it can take much longer. And even when we looked at just the month to month, where we only had data for June 2025, we were over 50 days at 51 days. So we're looking at closer and closer to 2 months of days on market until sale. So if you're someone who is looking to buy in this market and what you're buying is not your forever home, that's something to consider. How long it will take for the home you're in now to sell. Of course, you would have to look at the data at that time when you're ready to sell. But as you go into it now, keep that in mind. Are you going to be able to withstand financially to have that home for an additional 2 months, let's say, while you plan the next phase of your home ownership journey? Is that reasonable for you? And consider if this number changes to longer or even shorter. What is your plan of action? All right, median sales price, again with that asterisk, through June 2024 was $423,500. Through June 2025, it was $387,000, showing a decrease of 8.6%. We see that we didn't really have any closed sales or any median sales price when we looked at June 2024. So this is the first time with this category that we are able to see a median sales price for June or through June 2024. From that, we see that the median sales price is decreasing. And it's of more significance than I think we saw above with the residential detached numbers. So it's just putting all this together. There's more new listings, more pending sales, more closings, but a longer days on market until sale, and the median sales price is decreasing. Again, the median is the middle point, so there are numbers above and below. Now let's look at the average sales price. Through June 2024, it was $423,500, exactly the same as what we see above for the median sales price. Now, through June 2025, the average sales price was $401,181. That's a decrease of 5.3%. Again, the average is taking all those sales prices and dividing it by the number of sales prices in that time frame. So we see a decrease from median and average sales price from 2024 to 2025 up until this point. And we're putting it all together. We're seeing that it's taking longer for properties in this market to sell. So it could be something that, like these categories have, there's an asterisk here. There could be some seller concessions going on as to why these numbers are decreasing to assist in getting this home sold faster. There could be some of that going on. However, this data does not tell us that. Percent of list price received through June 2024 was 97.7%. Through June 2025 was 99.4%, showing an increase of 1.7%. Now here we see that both of these numbers are still quite high. Of course, the 2025 value being closest to 100%, giving us the theory that we are closer to our list price and that the sales price being closer to the list price gives us a theoretical indication that the list price is most accurate to the value of the property. That may or may not be true, but that is the theory. So before I go into the graphs, before we wrap this live up, I just want to check for any questions. Let's see, we've got something here. So I see Anthony Banks. Does the percentage of list price mean percentage of original list price or net of price reductions? Thank you for that question, Anthony. So based on the asterisks that are next to the percent of list price, I would think that any price reductions are excluded from this data. I would think that it's referencing original. However, I could reach out to FMLS to help clarify that for future lives, but my expectation based on the asterisk that they have presented here is that they're not taking any considerations into any seller adjustments. However, I do understand your question as far as like a property going onto the market and then coming back off, possibly going back on at a lower list price, maybe coming back off, all types of things, or they just reducing it while they're on the whole time. So I would think it's going by the original, but that is something I can definitely check back into. So thank you for that question, Anthony. All right, so we're going to wrap up with these graphs. So the median sales price is presented on the screen in graph form. On the left, you'll see residential detached. On the right, you'll see residential attached. We've covered both of those property types today, as we always do when we cover our market data. Now, our rolling 12-month calculation is just referencing that as we get new data, we're going to drop some of the old data on the graph. Now, on the left, you will see, again, our median sales price, but it's for residential detached. And the green line is the zip code that we have been covering for this live, which is a new zip code here on this channel. And it's 30019, which includes Dacula in Gwinnett County. The gray line is the all MLS, which this MLS is First Multiple Listing Service, or FMLS. You'll see that at no point on this graph do these lines connect. You also see that they kind of move in the same habits. However, the entire time on this graph, you see that this zip code 30019 has a higher median sales price than that of the all MLS. And as the graph ends, you see that there's a greater divide between both of the lines. Now, when we go to the right, we see the median sales price for residential attached with the same concept, the rolling 12-month calculation. The gray line is still the all MLS, and the green line is still the zip code 30019. You'll see that the numbers are pretty much the same as far as the median sales price on the y-axis and the years on the x-axis. The all MLS line is pretty much almost diagonal But the green line is doing a lot of movement, and it's kind of standing out its movement. It does cross the all MLS line multiple times. First crosses about January of 2015 at about maybe the $150,000 median sales price. It soars above that and plateaus just under the $300,000 mark around the January 2016 point and continues there on into that before reaching 2017. And then it drops down over time as it's heading to January 2018, crossing that all MLS again at just under the $200,000 mark. It does a similar habit as it did, but kind of inverse from what we saw for 2016. It's doing the inverse relationship almost for 2018, where it plateaus about a little less of the $150,000 mark for January 2018 and around that time. And it rises again on about January 2019, where it crosses the $200,000 mark and connects with the all MLS line above that median sales price. And after that, it begins to soar above the all MLS line, but has several bumps in the road. And at the end of the graph, it's just under the $400,000 mark, which reflects what we discussed when we looked at the table. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go back to our live. No problem at all, Anthony, and thank you for being engaged in the comment section. And I'll look into that even more and just make sure that we have clarity on your question. All right, so thank you all for joining this live. Hopefully we can get StreamYard to get our video to kind of cooperate a little bit better so that I can get back on screen. I would like to be on screen, but I don't want to be a distraction with the video pausing and all of that. So this live was a bit better with just a different approach than with the DeKalb County live that we had. StreamYard kicked me out like 4 times. So I'm glad that we were able to get through this, get through the data and answer questions. And I'm glad to see the engagement on this live. I see there's at least 4 people here. So if you don't mind, please like the live. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any content that we have on this channel, whether I'm live or whether I'm posting something. Make sure that you don't miss whatever it is. And also, if you're interested or you know someone else is interested in this type of content, make sure that you share it to your other social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Instagram, of course, here on YouTube, TikTok, as well as Blue Sky and Substack. So if you're on any of those other platforms, feel free to link up with us, follow us on those platforms, and engage with us there as well. If there's no other questions, I'm going to end the live, but I thank you all. I am Jalon Strong, the Essential Millennial Realtor, and this is Dreams to Keys Realty, where your dreams turn into keys. I will see you all in the next video. Thank you all, and bye-bye.